everyone, and welcome to America Unhinged. I'm Wajahat.
And I'm Francesca Fiorentini, and this is the show that tracks the first 100 days of Trump's second administration, arguably a worse administration. And today we are on day 58 of the ongoing constitutional crisis, which we will once again outline today as Donald Trump openly ignores federal judges and their rulings.
But some good news off the top. I know Francesca's favorite company, the Tesla. How is the stock doing up to the Tesla?
Oh, I
Francesca?
really hope it's up. Oh, wow. Not only has it dropped, I believe it's 50% since December, but executives are selling off their stock in recent weeks, over $100 million worth, and that's just 4 top officers have unloaded $100 million in shares. Imagine what like non-top officers are doing, Waj.
Immigrant aunties and uncles in the Bay Area, imagine what they're doing. And those cyber trucks, good luck getting them out of the snow. But we'll also be talking about how Trump is unleashing cruelty at home and abroad, how he attacks Social Security while greenlighting Israel's attack on Gaza. And we'll be joined by Majority Report co-host Sam Seder, who took on about 20 young Gen Z conservatives because he is a masochist, and he is here alive to tell us how that went and to break it all down. But first, Francesca, please tell the good people how they can support Zeteo and independent media.
Yes, everybody. Again, Zeteo is an independent news organization. We're so happy to be here almost a year on, and Waj and I, again, 58 days on, and it's going terribly, but thankfully we're here to break it down. So if you don't mind, if you're watching live on YouTube right now, just like the stream right now. You can share it, let people know what you're watching on a Tuesday and Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And if you want to send in a super chat, we will read all of your chats. That really helps this show and Zeteo broadly. If you're not a paid member of Zeteo, you can always change that. There's excellent and awesome reporting every single day. So finally, if you're on YouTube, click the little bell in the upper right hand corner so you know whenever we're going live, in case it's a few minutes early, late, on a whim. Maybe Medi's going to do a little town hall. So check that out. Make sure to ring that.
Our community always fact checks me. Please do. Sam Seder. Apparently, I must have said cedar. What did I say?
No, the opposite. You said Seder. It is cedar. It's fine.
So it is cedar, right?
It is.
Oh, my Zeteo community, what are you doing to me? All right, see, I was right. I knew Francesca was going to correct me if I was wrong. But first, folks, some breaking news, unfortunate news, especially with this Trump administration. We want to give you some good news first. The Tesla stock is dropping, but that was to set up the following.
Yeah, I knew there was something
right
else.
here, that memo that detailed Trump's plan to sabotage the Social Security Administration seems to be coming to fruition, thanks to Judd Legum at Popular Information, who first reported on this memo. The biggest change contemplated by Diaz's memo is to require, quote, internet identity proofing for benefit claims made over the phone. So when an SSA customer, most likely your grandparents, is unable to utilize the internet ID proofing, customers now will be required to visit a field office to provide in-person identity documentation. Again, who uses Social Security? The elders, right? A lot of people who are disabled. About 40% of all claims, Francesca, are currently processed over the phone. The memo
Wait, say that again.
40%? Yeah, excuse me?
You said 40%?
40% of all claims are currently processed over the phone, and the memo estimates would require about 75 to 85,000 in-person visitors per week to the offices to implement the policy. But the offices are being cut by DOGE. So this is a very unsubtle way of weakening and crippling Social Security, because the people who depend on the most are elders. Many of them are disabled. Francesca, they cannot go and visit in person. They have to use the phone. And then in person, these offices are being shuttered down. And just some facts, you had that up. And thank you so much to our mighty producer, Mel, for these awesome stats and facts. About 67 million people, 1 in every 5 U.S. residents, collects Social Security benefits. Older adults make about 4 and 5 beneficiaries. The other 1/5 beneficiaries are young survivors of deceased workers. About 90% of people aged 21 to 64 who worked in covered employment in 2023 were insured through Social Security in case of severe disability. 97% of older adults either receive SS or will receive it. Over 4.7 million children under age 18 lived in families who received income from Social Security. Social Security lifted 1.4 million children above the poverty line in 2022. Without Social Security benefits, nearly 40% of Americans aged 65 and older would have incomes below the poverty line, and women represent more than half of Social Security beneficiaries in their 60s and 70% of beneficiaries in their 90s. In addition, women make up 95% of Social Security survivor beneficiaries. Folks, people will die. They've been trying to go after Social Security for about 40, 50 years. Each time Republicans touch it, it's the third rail. Their own base attacks them. But this time they're serious. This is breaking news that they're going to implement that plan that was in the memo. Thanks to Jed Legume for giving us a heads up a few days ago. They're going to cripple it. Mm-hmm. And as a result of crippling Social Security, our elders, our grandparents, the people who helped raise us, the people who worked hard for those payments, who were promised this income that barely keeps them alive, they're not going to be able to access that income. They're going to suffer and they're going to die. And thanks for letting me rant about this for a second, because I know people on Social Security. My grandmother lived with me until I buried her. For many Americans, as we heard in those stats, thanks, Mel, so much for doing that legwork for us. This is their only source of income, Francesca.
Yeah.
So if they can't access it, what's going to happen to them?
Yeah, I mean, let's just put up that comment again. I think there was someone who mentioned that they were on their parent was on Social Security, and without phone, service, they're going to be in a really bad spot. Hypno Amber says they're disabled. My mom's on Social Security, and without phone service, we'd be in a really bad spot. Yes, if you're disabled, how are you supposed to get to Social Security administrations? The other thing that this administration is doing is that they're ceasing to pay leases on Social Security Administration offices. So the physical places that you're allegedly supposed to go instead of getting via phone service, they're disappearing. They won't be able to pay their rent. I mean, Waj, I think the real thing is, after decades of paving the way to rescind Social Security benefits from Americans, knowing it was a third rail, Trump was like, well, what if we just do it? Just That's like, right. What if we just do open dog whistling? No more whistle. In fact, we don't need the whistle. Why don't we just bark, bark, bark and have the doggy over here helping us out? Why don't we just zig heil? Whatever. I mean, alleged zig heil, right? Like, what if we just actually tried it? And so this is the natural conclusion, in my opinion, of decades of undermining what is the most popular program in this country that keeps millions of seniors and others out of poverty, prevents them from eating cat food, prevents them from physically dying. And this, coupled with the slashing of Meals on Wheels and other things that keep seniors alive, make sure they get food every single day. I mean, it's the kind of destitution that comes along with authoritarianism and soft eugenics, as it's being called. Who cares about the elderly? Who cares about the disabled? Who cares if you get sick? That's your fault. That's on you. We're over here to get to Mars. Can you get there quicker? Thank you.
Yeah, you made a good point, and I know we have a piece of cruel news abroad, but let's just stick on this for a second. The whole aspect of culling the weak, the disabled, the old, the undesirables. I want to remind everyone, 5 years ago during COVID, during his first administration, Donald Trump lied to the American public when he knew how devastating it was. What did some Republicans say? Well, grandma and grandpa got to go for the sake of the economy. I'm not making it up, folks. They were willing to literally sacrifice our grandparents just to restart the economy because Trump knew that it could, and it did, sink his chances for re-election. So this is what these pro-life people want. They want the elders who literally, this is not an entitlement vote. Folks, they work for this. There's a reason why it gets taken out of your paychecks, right? Or just like taxes, right? They were promised, Francesca, you work hard, you do your job, you live in a country, the most powerful, wealthy country on earth, you get to a certain age, the golden years, and maybe, just maybe, this country that gives $38 billion of our taxes to Elon Musk for his failed friggin' Cybertrucks and cars that explode. maybe a little bit of that money could come to me so I could live my life with a little bit of dignity. And like you said, don't have to resort to eating cat food.
But it's also to finish the point, it really is about working until you die.
Yeah.
They've always wanted to raise, and in fact, the age of Social Security and retirement is being raised already. I think it's going up to 67 before you can collect those benefits. But this is the point. It's like you should be bagging groceries until you're 85. You should work your entire supposed retirement. In fact, retirement's a Ponzi scheme, right? Who
Yeah.
retires? No. Your only value on this earth is to make money for rich people like Elon Musk and to go to work every single damn day. Honestly, I think the other thing the pandemic proved, and you're right, the bad guys won out on the pandemic in the end. But really, the rest of us were like, you know what actually matters? My family, my friends, my free time. I don't want to be underpaid to go make money for somebody else. And that's why you saw so many of those labor movements rise up during that time. We got to move to other heinous news like this.
Well, the Trump administration and the White House were consulted by the Israelis on their attacks in Gaza tonight. And as President Trump has made it clear, Hamas, the Houthis, Iran, all those who seek to terrorize not just Israel, but also the United States of America will see a price to pay. All hell will break loose.
There you have it. The theme of today is unabashed cruelty, and it once again happened in Gaza with American-made weapons. And the Trump administration was given warning about it happening. This is one of the deadliest days of not a war, because there is actually a ceasefire, even though Israel kept on, violating it, and now is ultimately violated it by killing at least 404 people in one night, in multiple strikes, 560 wounded. Again, one of the deadliest attacks of the entire genocide at this point. Netanyahu said he ordered the strike because of a lack of progress in talks to end the ceasefire. Yeah, from yourself, my guy. You can't be like, things aren't going anywhere. Oh, whoops, I'm in the way. The White House said it had been consulted and voiced support for Israel's actions. The Israeli military ordered people to evacuate parts of northern and eastern Gaza. But of course, 404, including, in fact, the majority of those who were murdered, y'all, were children, including babies. And there is some devastating imagery that has come out. But it's back, right? Hamas does have a response. They said they have accused Netanyahu of upending the ceasefire deal and exposing the remaining hostages to a, quote, unknown fate. They're believed to have 24 living hostages. 24 people still left. 24 people to save. Again, 404 people lost their lives. But we're being told that these 24 people, okay, if you want them back, this is part of the ceasefire deal. And so I think, Waj, really, it's not just unabashed cruelty, but we're talking about kind of the jig being up, right? The jig is up when it comes to whether or not Trump is really going full authoritarian fascist. The jig is up as to whether Israel is sincere and honest about wanting a lasting ceasefire. They're not. They never have been.
And, I only speak for myself here. I'm not speaking for Zeteo or Francesca or Mehdi or anyone else, but 17 months after the terror attacks of October 7th, if you look at these images and if you heard what Francesca just said about this indiscriminate bombing campaign launched by Israel all across Gaza. And Gaza, by the way, folks, is a concentration camp. It's a prison. These people are stuck, right? It's occupied territory. Where are they going to go? It's one of the most densely populated places on earth. And Gaza is in rubble. It's almost essentially destroyed. There's not a single school in Gaza left, right? So these people who have lost everything and have suffered and endured a bombardment, up to even 70,000 people killed, according to the Lancet, right? It's not 45,000. They said once all the bodies are uncovered, it could be up to 70,000. A genocide, according to Amnesty International, and apartheid conditions in the West Bank, and when it comes to occupied Palestinians. You see this after 17 months, and you celebrate it and support it. To me, you are acting like a genocidal psychopath, and someone in your family, your loved one, needs to come and check you, and really sit there and sit with you and be like, why do you support women and children who have lost everything being bombed? Why do you support this cruelty? Do you not see them as human beings? And how do you justify this because we still have Israeli hostages and they could be killed in this indiscriminate bombing. What does this prove? Does this make anyone safer? Does this make the United States safer? Does this make Israel safer? And if you still support this, I'm sorry to say, Francesca, I'll say it publicly, you still support this, what's happening right now, you're acting like a genocidal psychopath. Sorry, but not sorry.
No, you're 100% right. And it's this moment where, you know, you're like, even if you have bought every single line of the Israeli government that has been debunked at this point about, you know, all the beheaded babies and the babies in the ovens and all the other horrible things that happen to babies, even if you believed that, why would that justify doing it more of that? Why would it justify actually murdering babies? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there is something really psychopathic about that. And we need to rein it in. And honestly, it's the same instinct that comes from dehumanizing, I don't know, Palestine protesters, who we're going to talk about in a little bit. In fact, those who are being rounded up in mass deportations. Because, well, we're in it, folks. This Saturday, Donald Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act, again, an act that's only been invoked 3 times during war, and was also used to justify the internment of hundreds of thousands of Japanese Americans, where they lived for years and years and were deprived of their property and their neighborhoods and on and on and on. Truly one of the most horrific instances in American history. That is being invoked in order to deport Venezuelans. Where? To El Salvador. That's right. In efforts to deport alleged gang members of Tren de Aragua, which is a Venezuelan prison gang, Donald Trump is paying the government of El Salvador to imprison some of these alleged gang members. Again, Tren de Aragua was designated a terrorist organization by the State Department in February. And it really is just an opportunity to lump everyone in together. But let's break down exactly what happened, because while 3 flights were deportation flights, had over 200 Venezuelan men on them being flown to El Salvador, a federal judge blocked the implementation of the Alien Enemies Act and of these deportation flights. You've got to turn them around, this judge said. Let's throw that up on here. Right. So this was right in the middle of it. And you could see the flight path. They left Texas. There are 3 planes, a first plane, second plane, and third plane. They went through Honduras and they ended up in San Salvador, El Salvador, again, to be locked up with, again, a very indiscriminate police state that Nayib Bukele is running there as well. The problem is that the judge had both a written and a verbal statement about turning these planes around, that this was illegal. But this is the constitutional crisis that we're in, Waj, and we've been talking about it. It was summarily ignored. The White House, including, again, Caroline Leavitt, said that the written order was issued at 7:26 and the verbal order was given from the bench at 6:48. So all the planes subject to the written order departed U.S. soil before the judge's order, she said, adding there's actually questions about whether a verbal order carries even the same weight as a legal order as a written order. Our lawyers are determined to ask and answer those questions in the court. Ms. Leavitt did not appear to address the third flight, which took off after the judge's written order was posted. The Trump administration had argued that the third flight was carrying deportees who were not covered under his order. Again, it is a technicality, y'all. And again, their deputy AG, Abhishek Kambli, said that this judge, Judge Boasberg, said that the directive on Saturday night to turn around the flights didn't take effect until it was put into writing later that evening. The judge responded, "You knew in the morning there would be a hearing at 5. So any plane you put in the air or around that time, you knew that I was having a hearing about. So when I say directly to turn those planes around, the idea that my written order was pithier, that this could be disregarded, that's a heck of a stretch."
That's a judicial way of saying bullshit. Bullshit.
Yeah.
Openly.
100%. And again, these are all technicalities that are being used to try and, to be like, oh, we would have adhered to the law if you had issued it in writing. No, they wouldn't have. I just want to play this because it's important to know. They don't care about following the law. In fact, they're openly saying it.
We made a promise to the American people. The President Trump has made a promise to American people. We're going to make this country safe again. I wake up every morning loving my job because I work for the greatest president in the history of my life, and we're going to make this country safe again. I'm proud to be a part of this administration. We're not stopping. I don't care what the judges think. I don't care what the left thinks. We're coming.
Cool.
No dog whistles. That's Luca. That's the Donald Trump's Luca Brasi. For those of you who have seen Godfather, you know that's an excellent reference. Whom Francesca refers to as the human commode, which I think is disrespectful to commodes because commodes actually have a useful function of cleansing filth.
You mean a toilet? Oh yeah. Well, I was looking. He's just Tom Homan. Why is he like a Ren and Stimpy cartoon? He's just like the most disgusting human boil come to life. And there he is.
Borders are.
I don't care what a judge says. This is what we're doing. I wake up every morning. I mean, is this guy from Full Metal Jacket? What is he about to say? Like, I love the smell of napalm in the morning. What the hell?
That's Apocalypse Now. But yes, that is
Damn
a man
it.
who's thoroughly
So
radicalized,
same
a warrior
war.
for MAGA, a man who admitted to 60 Minutes a few months ago that he will not separate families in the second Trump administration because he was open to deporting citizen children of undocumented immigrants. And there's another story that came out, Francesca, that a 10-year-old girl, a brain cancer survivor who was a U.S. citizen, was deported with her undocumented parents. And you said something. I think that's something that's important that we should, it's the underlying basic thesis of all of this. The dehumanizing language, right, against Venezuelans, undocumented immigrants, Palestinians, Arabs, Muslims, right? When I visited Poland and I went and visited the Holocaust Memorial, and I went and visited Auschwitz. One of the guards there told me, we were talking about American politics. It was during the end of the first Trump administration. And he said, his grandfather had escaped, so that's why he volunteers there. And, he was listening to our conversation, and then he leaned in and said, language. That's how it starts. It's through language. Because we were talking about the 2018 midterms and the caravan. And he came in and said, that's how it always starts. They first dehumanize you through the language. Invasion, terrorists, rapists, Haitians eating pets and dogs, which is a total fabrication, lie, and a Nazi conspiracy. And then the rule of law. Once you're in power, they let you get away with it.
Yep.
Like you can ignore a judge, and not just ignore a judge. When you're the president, you could target and threaten the judge. This is what Trump said. This is from his failing social media platform, and that was later shared. I won't read all of it, but I have to read a little bit of it. This radical left lunatic of a judge, troublemaker, agitator, who sadly put in by Barack Hussein Obama, was not elected. He didn't win the popular vote by a lot. He didn't win all 7 swing states, and he goes on and on. He didn't win anything. I won for many reasons in an overwhelming mandate. Not really. Only
I love how he's like,
1.4%.
the judge didn't win the swing states. Like, you are so dumb. What do you even?
He's so petty.
Yeah, he's a judge. He wasn't
I'm better
running.
than you, Judge. I won. I'm fighting for illegal immigration may have been the #1 reason for this historic victory. Well, now it's number 4. The #1 issue for most voters is the economy. I'm doing what the voters wanted me to do. This judge, like many crooked judges I'm forced to appear before, should be impeached. We don't want vicious, violent, and demented criminals, unless you're, January 6th insurrectionists or Conor McGregor or Andrew Tate in our country. Make America great again. And here is our favorite blonde Levitt on the judge. Here we go. Here's your affirmative action hire.
And so we have, unfortunately, Sean, a judicial branch that has gotten so out of control. You have single judges in single cities in lower courts trying to determine the way in which the president handles foreign relations. They cannot be allowed to do that. If we live in a country where the will of the American people is subverted by a single judge in a single court, we no longer live in a democracy.
We literally live in a democracy. It's checks and balances and separation of powers. The president is not a king, Francesca.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, but like, come on. We're 58 days into this. You could give up the ghost. We all know you didn't break 50% of the popular vote. It's 49.7. You didn't have a mandate. You never had a mandate. None of this is the will of the people. You're deeply unpopular. And the only reason that, honestly, Waj, we should be terrified right now that they're doing things like gutting Social Security and they're ignoring the justices is because I think they don't think they're leaving. I think that they will find a way to stay. They are no longer afraid of popular opinion. They're no longer afraid of the people. They simply want power. And they've said it a million different ways. And it's time to actually start listening to them. This is, it's just like, it's so bald faced. And I think we need to also really explain, if you want to dig into this, the fact that the people who are being deported to
Yes, it's very important.
jails in El Salvador are not members of Tren de Aragua, not at all. No,
And
they're guys with tattoos. In fact,
no, they're people with tattoos. They're no criminal records. Many of them are non-citizens who were deported pursuant to, like what Francesca said, the Alien Enemies Act on Saturday. There are some horrific stories coming out that there were just brown people at the wrong place at the wrong time. One person said she believes she saw her 19-year-old brother among the images shared online. You saw that fascist propaganda video, right? No due process, folks, but cameras were ready as hundreds of these brown people without due process landed up in El Salvador, where they might just end up being tortured in a prison with $6 million of our money going to pay for this. Aniello had told his sister on Friday night that he would be deported to Venezuela. She said in a phone interview with Reuters from Texas. Solanier said an ICE officer told her that her brother was detained because of a tattoo that linked him to Tren de Aragua, a violent gang with Venezuelan prison origins that has spread throughout America. She said the tattoo depicted a rose that he had gotten in a tattoo parlor in Dallas. He thought it looked cool, looked nice. It didn't have any other significance, she stressed, stressing that he is not a gang member. And now, folks, with the information that we have, it's pretty clear that there are some innocent people who were caught up, wrong place at the wrong time, and are now in prison in El Salvador in horrific conditions. And Steve Bannon acknowledges it. But this is what he has to say. And I'm glad we got this clip. Thanks so much, Mel. Listen to what he said. Give me 1 second. Here we go.
Maybe some people got caught up in it. Who knows? But you're going to get the bulk of them out. They try to do their best. I think they got everybody was a bad guy. But guess what? If there's some innocent gardeners in there, hey, tough break for a swell guy.
Tough break for a swell guy. And speaking about people, and let's unpack this, Francesca, I don't think they're leaving either. And I said this on the other show with Danielle Moody, Democracy-ish, and they're not leaving because they've been empowered and emboldened. And they've been empowered and emboldened by the Supreme Court, who in the summer said that the president, let's be honest, Trump, has absolute immunity to exercise his core functions. So now Donald Trump is saying, hey, I have absolute immunity as the president of the United States of America to do what I wanted. And the leopards who eat faces have decided to start eating the face of two justices who helped give this monster that power, one of them being Justice Roberts and another being Justice Comey Barrett. Justice Roberts came out today and pushed back very gently, Francesca. He just gently pushed back against the call to impeach judges who rule against Trump. He says for more than 2 centuries, it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose, but no comments upon him violating the Constitution, no comments upon him ignoring a judge.
I've got all this paint. I've got all this paint, and it looks like I'm in the corner, guys. I'm in a corner, and I'm gonna need. Can just someone put like a drop cloth down so I could walk out of here? Like, oh, buddy, Trump's gone too far. Have you seen it's
trending now? They're going. MAGA has gone after Comey Barrett because Barrett joined with the Judge Roberts in that 5-4 decision last week that we covered that forces Trump to release the funds that he illegally froze that essentially are now being used to kill innocent children all around the world, the dismantling of U.S. aid. And today with Justice Roberts saying this, he's trending right now. And guess who ain't happy? The leopards who like eating faces. They're going after Justice Roberts, Francesca. Whoopsie.
I mean, it's truly, I've been told, Waj, that the MAGA base won't stand for this. They will definitely check their own. At some point, any day now, the real MAGA. Oh, was that Steve Bannon? Oh, yeah, Steve Bannon was like, too bad. A gardener got swept up. Too bad for that swell guy. Is that sentient liver spot going to go out and mow his own goddamn lawn? I don't think so. That POS. No, okay. And the other thing I'm going to say is before we move on. Okay, so we're not mad at individual judges. for their ridiculous rulings. Barack Obama appointee. What about Judge Kazmark, the Trump-appointed judge who's single-handedly trying to make mifepristone, a medication essential for medical abortions, illegal? What about that psycho, that religious zealot, anti-choice freak? So we're going to leave the fate of all people who can get pregnant up to that dude? No. This goes all ways. If you're mad at a single judge, then yeah, maybe it should be checked by a higher court.
But they don't care. See, it goes back to the point that authoritarians don't care. It's all about power and how you can flex power. And so when you have an authoritarian, and I'm very comfortable now calling him an authoritarian, based upon the receipts that we've brought out on this show, based upon what we've seen in the past week, with literally them refusing judicial orders, creating a constitutional crisis, and now threatening to impeach that very judge, completely ignoring checks and balances, literally him calling himself a king, invoking Napoleon to say that he's above the law, and inciting a violent insurrection. What do you do to authoritarians? I would think you resist them. You use whatever power you have to resist an authoritarian. You throw sands in the gear. And if I was, I don't know, a member of the Democratic Party, that's what I would do, Francesca. But I'm crazy. You tell me.
You are crazy. I feel like you're leading us to this moment that we have every single Tuesday where we pick one person in the political world who has kissed the ring a little bit too much, maybe deliberately, maybe unwittingly. Maybe they don't think they're kissing the ring or bending the knee, but they are. They definitely are. We're calling that the Reek of the week, a la Game of Thrones, a character who was sort of reduced into a shell of just nothingness because of how much they were sort of cowed, right? We got a lot of reeks, Watch, but who's your reek this week?
There are many reeks to choose from, but I can only choose one. And this week, my reek of the week is Chuck Schumer, who is hawking his book on The View and CBS and canceled his book tour, which were in very blue, black heavy population districts, and he cited security concerns. Sure, I don't think he wanted to take the heat from the people. I am choosing Chuck Schumer for literally being the person who refuses to fight back against authoritarians, and worse, is complicit and coddles them and gives up whatever leverage of power he has, throws his own Democratic caucus under the bus, and for reasons I still fully don't understand because he hasn't explained it, allowed Donald Trump to keep funding the government. There's no shutdown. And that night when he went ahead and gave him the votes, he needed 8. Schumer gave him 10. Guess what happened? Trump laughed at their face and said, this U.S. media abroad, Voice of America, just going to cancel it. So no Voice of America, no input from Dems. Republicans, according to the reporting as of the past 4 days, have all seen it as a victory. They're mocking and laughing at Schumer and Democrats, and they said they're going to do it again. Folks, that's my reek of the week.
And he used the word aroused. And I remind everyone, you should never use the word aroused ever. You should not even use the word aroused when you are aroused. And joining us to talk about all of that, please welcome host of the Majority Report, Sam Seder.
We will win. We will win. We will win.
Sam, I was aroused, and that just killed it. That just killed it right there.
Sorry about that. You know, when you were talking, I thought my introduction was the Reek of the week, and I was getting a little bit
nervous.
You're like, what did I sign up for?
Exactly. I literally just finished watching Chuck Schumer on Chris Hayes's program for the second time in 4 days, trying to justify his complete lack of strategy. And it's impressive that after 4 days, he has no better story. Yeah. It is completely just a garbled mess. Nancy Pelosi, I don't know how long ago this came out, but I just saw it in Politico, said, I don't give away something for nothing. And
it was at 6:30 p.m. today, right? 2 hours ago.
So, I mean, I think when I find myself arguing the same thing as Nancy Pelosi or Neera Tanden, if someone's a subject of that, they've got a real problem. I mean, a real problem. I don't see how he continues on with this kind of like sort of relentless and frankly, I got to assume Nancy Pelosi is not doing this out of just, random frustration. I think this is an indication that there is an attempt. Either she is trying to rally the troops or the troops have basically said, can you do this?
Yeah.
And so
they were like, you took out Biden. Let's go. We get these octogenarian boomers out of here.
Septuagenarian, somnambulists. He's 74. Francesca, before you continue, just because we have some clips, here's Schumer on the vote when he was on The View earlier today. Check out this clip, Sam.
It is not true. That bill had far less it was bad. I hated it. But it does far less damage to Social Security. Medicare, Medicaid are far more susceptible to being eliminated, which is what that horrible Musk. Can you imagine this guy Musk, a billionaire, saying $1,100 for a senior citizen is not necessary,
but aren't
or
there
a Ponzi
cuts
scheme?
in that bill?
There are many fewer cuts in that bill than that would be in a shutdown.
But they
it was
still
a bad
exist.
choice. So we got to. Yes, they exist. But if you have two, have two choices. One bad, the other devastating. One chops off one of your fingers, the other chops off your arm.
Sam, your response?
Judd Legum found a memo that is circulating for instructions in the Social Security Administration. They are going to shut down the ability of Social Security recipients or applicants, I guess, to use the phone. And on top of that, they're shutting down the Social Security Administration. So what you have in his scenario one is a basically completely under the radar. We can talk about this. The people watching the show will know about it. But the fact of the matter is the vast majority of Americans, the vast majority of people getting Social Security will just simply think Social Security is failing.
Yeah.
Period. They won't know that it's Elon Musk. They won't know that it's Donald Trump. There'll be no one to blame. I mean, it's just this sort of like, poltergeist who's in charge of Doge, who is, not really in charge of it, but he's just hanging around. There'll be no accountability.
Yeah.
And Chuck Schumer essentially allowed Trump and Musk to do this, and the Republicans to do this with having absolutely zero accountability, completely obscuring for the American public what's going on. If Donald Trump wants to go out there and cut Social Security, he will do so, and he will pay for it immediately. Immediately. The American public, if they know who to blame, will blame somebody for losing Social Security. In this instance, it's just going to be some random failure. And that is what is so blinkered about his justification for that vote. Maybe I'm giving him too much credit, but I find it impossible to believe that that's what he believes.
Right.
Like there's some other reason why he provided either cover or the lack of leadership. It could very well be incompetence, but it's an astonishing amount of incompetence, if so.
But it was a 180, right, Francesca? I mean, we have to remind folks that he did a 180. Schumer came out last week and said that the caucus is united, right? The House leadership and the Democrats gave him this opening. And then the next day, he did a 180. And he threw them under the bus, and not just AOC and not just the progressives. You even had, like old school Democrats coming out and say, whoa, Clyburn came out and said this. Hakeem Jeffries said this, right?
Yeah.
So with Sam, we don't know, but I'm with you. And I think there's something happening, a backroom deal.
It's Mossad.
Somewhere.
I'm going to say it's Mossad. It's like a Mossad op. I'm just, because it is strange.
I think donors.
It's donors, and he continues, by the way, to say that he should not go anywhere. Sam, he should not resign from being the minority leader. he's the best guy for the job.
Your own party saying
Yes.
that's to go.
Here's what I'm saying. I'm the best leader for the Senate. We have a lot of leaders. You know, when you don't have a president, there's not one leader of the party. There are lots of them. We have a lot of good people. But I am the best at keep winning Senate seats. I've done it in 2005. Just in 2020, no one thought we'd take back the Senate. Under my leadership, we took it. So we now are executing.
You're not going anywhere.
We have a great. We're moving forward. Hakeem and I have a plan.
We have a plan.
Well, someone should tell
My black
Hakeem
friend
that.
Hakeem and I.
Someone should tell Hakeem that, because when he was asked, do you need a new leader in the Senate? His response was not, of course not. No, Schumer and I have a plan. His response was, next question, please. I mean, this is, it's fascinating. And I think, Wajahat, you're right. My co-host, Emma Vigeland, the moment this happened, she was like, this sounds like Wall Street donors.
Yeah.
Wall Street donors saying a government shutdown will be horrible for the market.
There you go.
And that's why you see Gillibrand and
Stop
Schumer
bleeding.
so vociferously come out and say this, because, you know, they don't care. They don't care what happens to Social Security. In fact, there's probably a decent amount of those donors who are like, would it be such a bad thing? They don't care about these social services. Fundamentally, they just care about, you know, accruing more wealth. And it seems like, you know, we live in a blue state. I happen to live in New York. We live in a blue state. We shouldn't have to worry about our senators essentially selling out the Democratic Party. And whether it's incompetence or it's donors, he is not up to the task. I mean, one way or another, he's just not up to it.
Yeah, and there also are 9 other senators that voted for this. I mean, Brian Schultz, remember, initially from Hawaii, was like, really came out strong. I think he was in front of the USAID and was like one of the first people to speak on to the media, almost like the first person to rally as a senator. And we're like, oh, okay, Brian Schultz. And everyone's sort of excited about it. And then he also votes for cloture without not using the filibuster and effectively for this bill. And I think this is the problem, right? The problem is we've got a fascist authoritarian takeover on the one hand, and we have a flat-footed, demobilized, progressive left and democratic movement. There is no leader. There's a crisis of legitimacy and leadership, and you've got people like Schumer leading the way. So the signal to the grassroots is, we ain't got nothing. Let's do what James Carville said and roll over. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you going to die? Try not to die between now and the midterms. That would be great. That's really their only plan. And it really is, I think, a radicalizing moment for a lot of young people that were already deeply disillusioned with this party, who, again, are not going to get caught in the weeds of like, the cloture, the vote. All they see is Dems not fighting.
I mean, the idea, you know, Chuck Schumer just tonight was like, we have the courts right now. But it is a complete absence of politics. Like, if that's the case, if Chuck Schumer doesn't need to do anything between now and whenever it is that he imagines Trump's numbers are going to be so low, despite the fact that, like, you know, I guess supposedly, you know, he's anticipating that your average voter is going to know that in the, you know, the DC Circuit case, this judge is being ignored. And, you know, the DOJ lawyer is acting very rudely. I mean, this is just absurd.
Yeah.
He might as well resign. He is basically saying there is nothing for him to do between now and whenever this magic takes place, whenever the fever breaks, which we have been waiting to happen in the Republican Party. I mean, direct quotes from all of these Democratic politicians about the Republican fever breaking,
the epiphany,
as far back as 2008, maybe even earlier, frankly. And so I honestly don't see how he can weather this, because it is, Francesca, as you say, like, this is going to be so demoralizing to people.
It is.
When you have such unanimity about his failure of leadership. Like, what's the point?
I don't think he's going to survive either. because I think they're misreading the moment. And I'm glad Francesca brought up the Carville quote. For those who don't know, Carville, who was relevant in the 20th century and helped win one election in 92 for some reason, is now like the Gandalf of the Democratic Party. And they keep listening to him. And he said, just play possum. That's exactly what he said. What Francesca is saying is quoting Carville, who's very influential with the centrists and the money. He says, play possum, lay dead, let the Republicans destroy themselves. All right. What we're seeing, though, with the Democratic base, again and again, the polling came out, I'm sure you saw this, Sam, is that they have a massive drop in favorability. In fact, it's the lowest rating ever since they started keeping ratings since 1992. Among the overall American public, the Democratic Party's favorability rating stands at just 29%. And what people are saying is they want fighters. We're going to lose our Social Security. We're losing our Medicaid. We lost our jobs. Veterans are being cut at Veteran Affairs. For the love of God, do something. And this is how Chuck Schumer treats Republicans. It's a quick clip, but it went viral again at The View. And I want you all to check out Sunny Hostin's eyes. She's the lady on the right. Check it.
Now, do we have to act and do we have to fight these Republicans, this right-wing group,
the MAGA.
Not all Republicans? Every step.
Not all Republicans, Sam.
Like the side eye. He's behind Biden on this. It's like he didn't even download the MAGA Republicans talking point.
Which Republican does he feel that we shouldn't fight?
You tell me.
Massey? Which Republican is it that he thinks is going to buck Donald Trump? I mean, this is the delusion they keep having over and over again. And I will say this, tonight he had a slip where he said, we beat him in 2017. There is a fundamental difference between 2017 and now. Not just the fact that you had some, sort of rump of an old Republican Party. That rump is so long gone. The other difference is that when these Republican lawmakers have to make a decision as to whether they will respond to what's happening in their district or in their state and respond against Donald Trump, there's another factor that did not exist 5 years ago or 8 years ago, and that is literally a literal unlimited amount of money that Elon Musk has pledged to primary any one of these Republicans. So they're sitting there. This is not a calculation of, can I beat this, more MAGA candidate in a primary? It is, can I beat this more MAGA candidate in a primary who literally has an unlimited amount of money to spend in a primary? Do I want to be that person who is going to be on the receiving end of the most amount of money spent in a Republican primary in history? And they're all going to answer no, on top of the fact that much of their constituents agree with Donald Trump. I mean, this is a reality that I think Chuck Schumer doesn't understand. I think James Carville doesn't understand. Nancy Pelosi understands it. I don't know. Who do you have to spite?
This means we
not a
have
situation
to get a
where
Francesca. We need a Francesca Pelosi impression. Do it, Francesca. Come on now.
This is the most disturbing thing I've
No, I don't. I'm not going to do
so
it.
good.
I won't bow to the pressure. I'm not the Democratic Party, but Sam, you like to tinkle. You like to tinkle with the skunk a little bit, don't you? You talk to young MAGA. You talked to young MAGA in your Surrounded performance the other day from Jubilee Media, which really is just like a clickbait YouTube show. Not unlike this one. Am I right? Yeah. No. And you debated, what was it, 20, 25 young conservatives. Young was not really a stipulation, I believe, in all of this, but they turned out to kind of all be young, like uninformed Angelinos of all kind of walks, but mostly young people. And the results really went viral for all the wrong reasons because of how idiotic these people look debating you. And we can just play one little clip in case folks hadn't seen it.
I'm talking about Trump's rescission of these orders.
If you received a
on
tax
these
cut
agencies.
as an employer, wouldn't you hire a person of color?
Dude,
if you could pay them less?
Listen, we're talking about government agencies that do not get tax cuts. They don't. Government agencies.
They don't.
No.
Yes, they do. They absolutely do.
I'm talking about
Every
parts
private and public sector gets tax cuts when you hire a person of color.
Government agencies don't pay taxes. Government agencies operate are funded by the government.
That is not true. That is not true. And you know what? I think
we took out the last second that went viral of Sam literally looking at the camera with the look of pain, sadness, defeat, disgust. I don't know what it was, but I felt it. We all felt it through the screen.
Government agencies are funded by the government. That's not true. And that guy, by the way, I believe it's now we know was part of the Jubilee casting crew, and he's been in other videos. But
he seems
I think
to cast himself. He's very confident.
Funny how that works. But it's him. Speaking of DEI hires, he's like, well, I'm just gonna cast myself on this.
I mean, there were two things about that. First off, I didn't get to the private sector part because I couldn't get past the public sector part. But there's also no such tax cut in the private sector.
Yes.
There are programs where you do get a tax cut, or you can write off some of the taxes if you hire somebody. But the categories, none include race. There are some who are receiving some form of government support. We hear a lot about work requirements for different government programs. Veterans get can get you a tax rebate in some instances. Ex-convicts get you a tax rebate. There are certain folks with disabilities in certain circumstances, but none of what he talked about existed, and obviously there's no government agencies that ever get tax cuts. But
the confidence of the ignorance,
that's what was really disturbing.
I think there's something deeper there, because I actually also think it matters that you were in LA. It matters that a lot of these are like young wannabe MAGA influencers. They could be future Caroline Leavitt's. Yeah. I mean, these are people who see there's more money in right-wing media. There's more money in parroting some of these talking points. There were other people who sort of seemed legitimately misinformed, but not just trying to parrot stuff. But I guess I was also like in the age of just repeating a lie over and over again, as you mentioned earlier about Social Security, right? We're just going to, I think it was you who said, like, it'll just seem like Social Security is dysfunctional, and that won't fall on Elon or Trump's lap when it absolutely should. So we're going to be in debates in 3 years. Tim Pool's going to be like, Social Security doesn't work. Look, these people aren't getting their checks. And then you're like, because 100%. Elon did it.
Yep. And I mean, I think there's no doubt that being in LA and sort of like, putting out a casting call, and that would have been very different. You also wouldn't have had the diversity, frankly, totally. If you had done that in a different area. But the insistence that they knew what was right. And then the other, there were two other clips that went viral as well. And it was based upon my claim that unless you are a theocrat or a billionaire or a white nationalist, you made a mistake in voting for Donald Trump.
Right.
And the two people who came up, instead of like refuting the fact that, no, I voted for Donald Trump and I'm not a billionaire, I'm not a theocrat, I'm not a white nationalist, I voted for Donald Trump because of X, Y, or Z. The two people who came up, one said, I am a white nationalist, and
the white woman, the young white woman, right?
And I voted for Donald Trump, and this is why white nationalism is good. And the other one came up and said, I am a religious fundamentalist, a theocrat, and this is why my morality is better than yours. And frankly, I think the sequencing was that the theocrat came first, and I was like, wait, what? Like, you're
not disproving your.
Well, they're not disproving the thing, but aside from that, it was like the confidence to come up there. Yeah. And I guess, that's what is inherent in a theocrat, right? My religious values. I mean, look, I don't care where you get your morals from. It doesn't make a difference to me whatsoever. I don't care if you get them from the back of a comic book or if you get them from, the point is that in the context of government, what are we doing here? And this is a guy whose, Twitter feed has a picture of him holding up a sign, women shouldn't vote. He said to me in that moment, women should be subjugated to men. He doesn't believe in marriage equality. All these things, wherever your morality comes from, whatever your personal code of ethics is, the imposition of one religious perspective on everybody supplanting government is not a democracy. And it's certainly not the democracy that America was founded on. And the idea that this country has had a white Christian culture exclusively since its founding completely negates the existence of Native Americans. I mean, Thanksgiving. I mean, we're starting pretty early here in terms of our culture. Native Americans, Black Americans, I mean, on and on. She thought that we didn't have a melting pot until 1965, basically.
Or the people who weren't considered white.
What's that?
Or the white people who weren't considered white.
Well, that's Irish, the thing. Italian, is that the Irish and the Italians weren't white until we get, halfway through the 20th century.
Exactly.
So, I mean, the assuredness and this is like the hallmark of authoritarian movements, right? Like, we have a corner on the absolute truth. And it's not even a question of, about representing a broader perspective of views. I mean, that's, the ultimately left, or even just, sort of like liberal society is some head nod, at least in theory, to the idea that our society has to be representative of the broad cross section of people that we have in it.
Right.
And they completely deny this now. And it is all part of like a minoritarian perspective on things. I mean, that's why they control the Senate and the redistricting. And I think for me, what I hope came across in that was this is what is at the heart of the Trump movement. I think there's a lot of people who voted for Trump who I think were less aware of this. And if this brought a heightened awareness to that for a lot of other people, then good. But it's disturbing.
You did God's work there. You were a masochist. I wouldn't have done it. I saw the whole hour and a half. It left me actually very depressed.
The full taping was like 2.5 hours.
Yeah, but it was because I was depressed, not because you did a stellar job. It's just to see the youth so misled, to see that white supremacist owning it. And as Francesca said, top of the show, there's no more dog whistles. The hoods are off, folks. We're in it. And Francesca and I speaking for ourselves, we are in it. These are authoritarians. I believe, Sam, you agree with me. It's a right-wing minority rule. They have all the power. They don't think they're going to leave. They're flexing that power. And now they don't have to talk in dog whistles. They're telling you. And so we need the fighters to step up in any way, shape, or form. And Sam, you're one of those fighters. Our community loved you. Come back anytime, sir. It was fantastic to have you on. Please shamelessly promote yourself and your show before you exit.
It's called The Majority Report, but I just wanted to tell you guys, I'm so glad you guys are doing this. Really appreciate the opportunity to come on.
Of course.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Sam. Likewise. And thank everybody who's in the comments. Very sweet. I just want to quick plug. Everybody needs to go to savepublicservices.com and type in your address, get notified, because there is pushback, Waj. I mean, I feel the fear for me is that when we say they're Christian nationalists that have all the power, we sort of relinquish that power and we kind of get complacent and scared. And I think, those of us, if you can fight, if you can, if you are mobile, if you have citizenship, utilize it. This is the time. There is no other time but now. The leaders are ourselves. Look in the mirror. That's right. You.
We have the numbers, we have the majority, and we always leave on some good news. And Francesca, I give you a reek, so tit for tat. You tell me something good.
Yes. Well, I saw this story as, another Republican arrested on, some kind of solicitation of sex, specifically from a minor charges. There's so many of them. And then you in the pre-show told me that, no, this guy, Justin Eichhorn from Grand Rapids, Minnesota, was arrested. And he's the same guy that is behind the Minnesota Senate bill to define the Trump derangement syndrome. Again, this made up MAGA terminology to say, I pay attention to what the president does, to classify it as a mental illness. That guy was arrested in underage prostitution thing. And you don't even need to be watching this with your eyes to know what this man looks like. Just weird, cartoonishly feathery hair and sunken, swollen eyes. I'm sorry. But yes, Jules T., another family values guy. He was talking to a 16-year-old and arranged to meet her on Monday, according to Bloomington Police Department. And yes, he was the guy that introduced legislation to define Trump derangement syndrome as a mental illness, the acute onset of paranoia, otherwise normal persons that is in reaction to the policies and presidencies of Donald J. Trump. And on its face, Waj, that was terrifying to me, because this is like all about like, how can we lock women up the way we used to when we called them hysterical? I know. We'll lock anyone who thinks what Trump's doing is wrong hysterical. You've got a mental illness. Let's 5150 you. You know, all this stuff. But first we got
every allegation is a confession. They want to get rid of sex traffickers, so they welcome Andrew Tate. Rapists, so they let Conor McGregor address the White House and go on an anti-immigration rant. They're against DEI, but they make an exception for St. Patty's Day. They're against, the pedophiles, but lo and behold, they suffer from TDS. Thank you all for joining us today. That is our show for America Unhinged. We are independent media. We have started 58 days ago. We're going to be with you at least for the first 100 days of Trump's second administration. Please subscribe, click that bell, like this video. The elves in the algorithm really appreciate it. It's going to go live in about 2 minutes. Please share it anywhere and everywhere. Thank you for all the super chatters, the $1.99, the $2.99, the $10, the $5. It goes a long way. And all the folks who actually donate in the Zeteo donation page. Again, we don't bend the knee. We don't kiss the ring. We call it all. We call the balls and the strikes. We're after the Democrats and the Republicans. We're here for justice and truth, and hopefully for a free and fair democracy. Francesca, you do the good work. How can people support you, find you, listen to you?
Listen to the Bituation Room wherever you get your podcasts. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Also, Cobb's Comedy on Wednesday, May 7th. Come out and see me and Matt Lieb. And you, where can people find you?
Just read The Left Hook. It's on Substack, theleft.substack.com. I don't believe in paywalls because I'm a terrible capitalist, but it's a growing community. And I also co-host the show Democracy-ish with Danielle Moody, Monday and Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, live. And on the social medias, you can find me and hear me rant. We will be back Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Spread the good word, folks. Thank you to our growing community. And also, there is Zeteo merch. These Zeteo hoodies are dope. We're waiting for ours, Mel.
I know.
I'm waiting for my Zeteo sweater. Give it to me. And once I get the hoodie, I'll wear it. But that's going to be on Thursday. We'll be back 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time.
Yes. And until then, America, keep your screws tight. We'll see you then.